to create a new breed of chili called, say, Jensen's Fiery Pecker, which may or may not be in the works. So, I'm sure you've all been eagerly awaiting this day, but I've got an announcement to make. I've started pursuing another journey of discovery. I wanted to go into something different to what I'd been doing, but that could still complement that kind of stuff. So I decided I'm going to grow my own chilies. That way I can cook with them on the barbie, I can make hot sauce, steak seasoning, and I can give some spicy ones to some mates to ruin their day.
Bruh.
So I started to learn how to grow chilies. I started a few months ago, keeping it mostly a secret. Today's episode of this series, I'm going to teach you how I've grown my own chilies, how you can do it at home, as well as give you some lessons learned and information along the way. When you think about it, it's actually pretty badass. You grow something from a seed, that grows some fruit, which have seeds in it, and then you can use those seeds to grow more of it. I think that's pretty cool. By the way, guys, this video is going to be informative as fuck, so if that's not your kind of thing and you prefer to continue on your life knowing jack shit about anything, then feel free to skip ahead to my summary. Otherwise, I'm going to provide just enough detail so that you guys can do it at home, but I'll be linking all the in-depth detail on my website under different blog posts. Make sure you follow my Facebook and Instagram, because I'll let you guys know when I'm going to post more information on the website via there. Now that shameless self-plug is done, we can get into the information of the video. When growing plants from seeds, there are various stages the plant goes through. The first is germinating the seed. Germination is the formation of a seedling from the seed when the seed's in a good environment. What this environment looks like changes for different plant species, but for chilies the seeds require moisture and warmth in order to sprout. I experimented with 4 different ways of germinating seeds because I wanted to kind of evaluate the best way of doing it, but I'll get to that later in the video. After the seed is sprouted into a seedling, it needs an environment it can grow in. Traditionally, this would be soil. With the advancement of agricultural optimization, this could now be a growth medium such as clay in a hydroponic system, or even just water in an aquaponic system. Because I'm a rookie, I'm going to do my first batches in soil, which requires the least amount of specialist knowledge for success. After all, plants have been growing themselves in soil for hundreds of thousands of years. Now, depending on the size of the pot you plant your chili in, you may need to repot it after a while if it gets too big. After your plant's grown a few weeks to a month or two, it'll start budding and then blooming with flowers. Now we all know there's a lot of variety in the different types of chili plants you can get, from things like the jalapeno to the Carolina Reaper, the current official hottest chili in the world.
That is deadly and it will kill.
These different varieties are called cultivars. The really interesting thing about chilies and their cultivars is that the types that we know and have now are results of selective breeding and cross-pollination. For example, to create a new breed of chili called, say, Jensen's Fiery Pecker, which may or may not be in the works, I could take pollen from one chili cultivar with desired features such as heat, color, or size, and use it to fertilize another cultivar with other desirable traits. So the first of the 4 methods I tried is called the paper towel method. You put the seeds between 2 damp sheets of paper towel and lock it up in a Ziploc bag. Put the bag somewhere warm. In my case, I got some heating mats off Amazon. And the seeds use the warmth and moisture to germinate and sprout. You then carefully transplant these sprouts into pots and hey, you've got some chili plants. As you see here, when I was transplanting them, because this was my first attempt, I didn't understand the importance of moist soil, and this soil was dry as fuck. I ended up needing to repot them later in that week. The second method I read about still uses paper towels, but in this one you put them in a container and put the container in a Ziploc bag. This is supposed to be a cheap way of mirroring a greenhouse environment, which is a way of mirroring a rainforest environment. Pretty much every one of this lot had mold in them, and after a sniff I realized it's because one of my family who washed the containers after we ate the Chinese food didn't do a real good job. But even after getting rid of the mold with some ultraviolet lights, details to come on the website, I had a lower success rate with these than I did the first paper towel method. The next two methods were quite similar and definitely more refined. I ordered some propagation kits online. These come with a tray, a lid with a vent up top, and some biodegradable spongy growth medium. I had two kits and I wanted to test out how decent this spongy shit was, so in one kit I used the sponge, in the other I used my soil, which is a premium tomato potting mix with blood and bone meal. Chilies and tomatoes like the same kind of nutrients. Because I wasn't having much luck with the super hots in the first two methods, I decided to do just super hots in these two containers. I put 3 chili seeds in each soil section and 3 in each sponge, which came out to about 9 chili seeds per type and about 90 all up with each kit. This way, even if I had poor germination rates, I'd still get enough of each kind to move forward. The outcome of these two methods was really interesting. In the soil, 23 of the roughly 90 seeds I planted grew. In the spongy material, 25 of the 90 seeds I planted grew. I can say 100% this is testimony to me being a beginner, so it's lucky you get so many seeds in a pack. For the soil kit, once the chilies had sprouted, I could just move the planter carton under my normal growth lights and could repot the chilies quite easily using my trusty tweezers. However, with the sponges, I encountered some issues due to my mass planting strategy. Because I'd planted 3 seeds per sponge, in some cases multiple seeds had sprouted in one sponge. Knowing chilies are sensitive to being transplanted, details to come in about a minute, I decided to cut into the sponge and separate the chilies before the roots got entwined and inseparable without killing the plant. Not too sure at this point if that was the wrong thing to do, but as you can see, these plants I separated are suffering. Thankfully, some of them are on the mend, but I think a couple are likely to die. Now, with all the methods, at some point you'll need to transplant chilies into another pot. Something to note is chilies are super sensitive to being transplanted. With the exception of the sponges, which was a pretty violent transplant, I never had any problems transplanting mine, but that's because I utilized a number of tools from my trusting gardening utility belt, which is given to me by an absolute champion. Thanks, Dan. Because chilies can get so stressed and die from that stress when you move them, people recommend minimizing the number of times that you uproot the plants and move them to new containers. So, at the end of all this, what would my recommendation be for growing chilies from seed to seedling? Due to the success that I had with the super hots, I reckon going forward my recommended way of doing it would be using soil in a propagation kit sitting on top of a heat mat. Minimizes the number of times you need to transplant the plant, and when you do transplant the plant, the soil makes it really easy to dig around and make sure you're not disturbing the roots much. Do you know you have a 50% better chance of your seeds germinating if you hit that like button? And a 90% chance if you subscribe. Subscribing's free, supports the channel, and you can unsubscribe at any time if you want. Cheers for tuning into this episode of Jensen's Journey of Discovery. Later, motherfucker.